Welcome to week 10 of Haibo Does Data, SmashUp's metrics review. As always, I'm here with my co-host Owen. How's it going?
Great. What a weekend. What a weekend.
What a weekend. Um, oh man, so many crazy things. Later on, I have a couple trivia questions for
Okay.
you
Okay.
about this weekend, but yeah, let's jump right into it. Owen's five takes from this past weekend.
Yeah, so these are going to be a little quicker, but I think very relevant. Do we all agree the Chiefs got lucky? But then we also probably have to agree that great teams do. I mean, out of a blocked field goal to win. I mean, good for them staying undefeated. The Lions, number two. How about that? I mean, a kick by someone that's many of us played and got beat by. That's number five. I don't want to jump too far into that, but Bates with the game winner there to keep the Lions rolling was awesome. I mean, the Cowboys are bad. I think number three, right? I mean, we've got some real bad teams that weren't expected to be bad, and the Cowboys are one of them. On this very podcast last week, number four, somebody said the Saints were going to beat the Falcons, and they sure did.
Yep.
I don't know. That's the kind of game the Falcons lose. And number five, I don't want to talk about it. Jaden Daniels is the greatest quarterback of all time. I think we all know it, and they shouldn't have lost that game to the Steelers, but they did, and that's a real bummer. The bonus one, number six, I got beat by Deadeye again. I don't want to talk about it, but yeah, also,
His Deadeye is just
yeah.
is he is by far, I think, that the toughest boss out
Yeah,
there.
that's boss six, right? Something got flipped in the coding script, and we were actually in the
Something,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Do you when you watch TV shows, right, and we talk about like main character, plot armor, if I were to bet on the Super Bowl this year, I would say Chiefs Lions. It's just the amount of luck that
Yeah.
is going into, I mean, and not just this week for the Chiefs, like there have been a couple of weeks now where it just they always feel like they're teetering on the edge, but they're 9-0. Pacheco's, I think, been his window's opening. Like they're starting
Yep.
to get some people back. Like who knows?
Look, I'll flip it. And I think that's an odds-on favorite, no doubt about it. But you gotta expect some variances coming, right? You gotta expect that some of these things stop going that way. But maybe they don't. We start talking about Team of Destiny and the 72 Dolphins don't get to pop that champagne this year. Who knows? But I just if it's Mahomes and Kelsey, I won't be shocked, right? Like if that team runs the full table, like I'd be like, yeah, okay, there it is. They're the ones that did it.
I can definitely see them running the table in the regular season and then losing the first game, like
Yeah.
losing first round of the playoffs. They're winning, but Mahomes hasn't looked great,
No.
and they just don't look great.
And when that happens, like the Dolphins pop the champagne, does like Belichick and Brady and Eli Manning send something when you run the table that but then maybe lose at the end? Maybe there's something they'll do if that happens.
Yeah, yeah. Who knows? Who knows? The other my favorite quote from this week, Jerry Jones and the Sun. And here's the thing, they have curtains. It's not like they don't have curtains. The curtains are already installed. He just refuses to put like they use it for every other event in that stadium other than Cowboy games.
So
And it's
weird.
just I don't understand it.
Yeah. No.
Um,
Don't try to. It's Jerry Jones.
where is the moon? How do we know where the sun is going to be at all times? Just a crazy, crazy guy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm guessing that much money it does something to your brain.
hmm
I don't have that problem. It's very nice.
Someday, Owen, someday.
Yep, yep. Someday I'll be an NFL owner. Totally.
Um, and then you too can build your stadium in the most
That's right.
weirdly aligned.
That's right.
Well, let's take a look at some of the stats from last week. Again, a lot of lineups. Over 2,000 people played. Over 3,000 lineups last week. These are your top picked players. Um, Get some interesting ones in there. Darnold there as the second most picked quarterback.
Wow, yeah.
Um,
That's a surprise. It jumps out. I don't did any of these running backs do well? I know I did not do well with Saquon. Uh Tracy didn't. I think he got a touchdown, but then he like fumbled twice. So I mean, I think his score was hurt.
mhm.
Achan didn't do much. Well, I mean, it was kind of a rough week for running backs.
It was. It definitely was. And later on, when we take a look at the top 50, like last week was the crazy week for running backs, right? Like
Yeah, that's right.
and I mean, we talked so much about hellacious halfback slash hurricane season. It just dominated last week. This past week, in the top 50, one team in the top 50
Wow.
had hurricane season slash hellacious halfbacks.
Wow. They
That
must have had
just,
Bijan and some other combination of players that a lot of people didn't play.
mhm.
What a just I know it was Thursday night, but I did want to, I mean, Jamar Chase. What a game. I gotta remember, look, this is on me. That game had shootout all over it, and I just missed setting my lineup. And then I kicked myself the whole night I was watching. So I gotta pay a little better attention of getting in some guys that are relevant on Thursdays.
We also, do you remember we did this show
During
Thursday
at the
during
half. That's
halftime,
right. Yes.
and
Yep.
we're like, oh, this is a low scoring game. Like,
Yeah. That
oh, they're
second
gonna,
half.
oh
That's
man.
right. Henry hadn't gotten goal. Yeah, that's right. That is exactly right.
Yeah. I went back and listened to it. I was like, oh man. The first like 5 minutes of last week's show, I was like, forget we said any of
Any of it, just
that.
let's delete it.
Um, most played. Yeah, hurricane season. I mean, we talked a lot about it. People saw it being effective. Just didn't pan out this week.
Yeah.
Didn't pan out.
I
Run
think that's great.
CMC.
Like I mean, we like we said last week, it's a great card combo if you pick the right three running backs. And it's not easy to pick the right three running backs. I mean, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the right receivers too for hurricane season. We saw some folks like pick the right running backs, but then had Jamar Chase, and hurricane season just destroys you points wise if you have a high scoring receiver. It is basically you need high scoring running backs and very low scoring receivers.
Yeah.
Um, it's an interesting play. Run CMC, barely edging out Human Vulture, but top picked card. We're going to come back to that a little bit later. But you
Okay.
definitely see that four of the top 10 combos were run CMC combos. Saquon, Achan, Kamara, Bijan. Like, people love playing run CMC.
It's a fun one. It's a fun card.
Yeah.
2,500 for the shot at 30 points. It's high risk, high reward.
Um, and now let's take a, so I don't think we've ever seen this, but 50 lineups. So remember, all of these counts are number of lineups.
Okay.
48 of the top 50 had Jamar Chase. This is
Wow.
basically a you did not
Yeah.
make the top 50 if you did not play Jamar Chase last week.
Yep. 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 That makes sense.
And if you look at the top cards, and also look at number two there, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and your top
Mhm.
two cards, Speed Demon, Hail Mary. That pair, that combo of QB, wide receiver,
Yep.
very, very, I mean, we talked about it, I think, 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it's always been a very powerful, I would say, combo. It's taken a little bit of a back seat, but this week, I mean, definitely see that coming back.
Now, who is Haibo Null there?
So those are lineups that decided to not play all nine players.
Ah, okay.
So 14 of the top 50 did not fill out all nine players.
Got it. Oh, that's interesting. That's good to see.
hmm Um, because we've talked about that before, right? About like, skipping a QB, skipping a
Mhm.
tight end. But yeah, 14 of those. Um, all right. Trivia question
Oh,
number
geez.
one. Terrible stat lines, but three quarterbacks from this past week, right?
I know
24 for 30.
QB3.
QB3. So just in a vacuum of these three terrible quarterbacks, which one was the least terrible?
I don't know. Maybe the guy that didn't throw a pick. But geez, that's
Yeah, it's like QB, you can make an argument like, hey,
oh
QB3 had 5 interceptions, but at least two touchdowns.
yeah,
QB2 had no interceptions, but was just 120 yards total. But and QB1's like kind of in the middle, right? Three
yeah,
interceptions, still no touchdown. But like you could make an argument that QB2 is the best in air quotes, best of the three.
yeah.
Um, do you know who QB2 is?
I don't. I can't think of who two is.
Caleb Williams.
Okay.
QB3,
That's Goff.
Goff. QB1,
I was thinking Derek Carr, but I don't think it was.
Darnold.
Okay. Wow.
And of the three, when we talk about, remember earlier with like, oh, the NFC North, like all four
Yeah.
teams over
Yeah,
500,
just taking care of business.
like you could have made an argument the Caleb Williams was the best quarterback in the NFC North, having been destroyed, or not destroyed, but just like a terrible game, 19-3 against the
Yeah.
Patriots.
Yeah.
Like, oh man. Not a good week. The Packers
That's
sat it
an
out.
interesting look right there. Yeah.
Packers sat it out, but not a good week for the NFC North. Two
No.
wins though. Two wins. Two of these three,
Yeah.
Vikings won,
Lions.
Lions. Oh man. All right. Trivia number two. Number one picked Smash card last week. Run CMC. On average, it hits twice, two or three times a week, and it's kind of random who it hits on. How many people do you think Run CMC hit on in week 10?
I don't think anybody hit it. I can't
Exactly.
think of anyone.
It's
I
exactly right.
okay, yeah,
Zero.
I was like, I don't know who
Zero.
hit it. Because I
Every
played it on Saquon, I played it on Kamara in a lineup, and I played it on Bijan. And Robinson was close. I thought he might get there, but yeah, that last drive, they just weren't throwing it to him. I was like, okay, great. They're down, they're gonna throw it. Didn't happen.
Yep. Kamara got the receiving yards, but
Yep.
didn't hit the 80. Um,
Yeah, I thought there was gonna
one,
be correlation where Kamara would kind of run it out and maybe he'd get to it, but they went like three and out, and then the Falcons didn't pass to yeah. Yep, 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 yep. Mm,
yep. I mean, I've been saying this every week, but just Run CMC is not a good card. It continues to get played, but the chances of it hitting are just so low.
yeah.
I don't think it's worth it. I just don't think it's worth it. But in any case, I thought that
I
was
think
a
you need to
fun.
come up with another $2,500 card to draw some of the Run CMC users away from that.
Yes, that is correct. All right, so let's take a look at
Oh,
single player.
this. No.
Um, well, the good news is if you played newbie, you probably won. Newbie had a all-time stinker of a lineup. That's with Ekelar too. He hit on Ekelar, missed everybody else, and four people. If you were one of the four that lost to newbie, I am very sorry.
Yeah, that's sad.
But more or less, everybody that played newbie won. Conversely,
Mm,
almost the exact same number of people play Deadeye, and once again, Deadeye is just don't feel bad, Owen. I mean, it's Deadeye is just probably the best fantasy football player ever.
apparently so. Apparently so. I wish
It's
this was some great reveal that it was me or Haibo controlling Deadeye. I wish that was what was going to happen here, but sadly it's not.
no. We had the first group of people play Fitz. Yeah, Pat Fitz from Fantasy Pros. He had a
That's a
rough
rough
week.
week for that setup, right? With being so running back focused, they just did not perform.
Yeah,
That's not a him skill thing. That was a rough one.
that was a rough week for yeah for him, for anybody really focused on running backs. And even still, 14 out of the 20 got passed. Six are going to come back to join the 12 coming from Deadeye. So Fitz, you got 18 people next week. But the 14 that won means that we can move on to our next boss. So we are now up to boss four, the opposite of Smash Mouth, West Coast. Um, West Coast thinks Smash Mouth is an idiot. Football is about entertainment, and nobody is entertained by running the ball 4 yards at a time. Nobody cares about playing defense. People care when teams score 70 points and touchdowns rain from the sky. You want long passes, one-handed catches. West Coast gives the people what they want. So, going up against his card, Air Raid, it is basically the equivalent card, but QBs, wide receivers, and tight ends. It's gonna be a tough one.
That is going to be hard. And there's no negative with this, right? This is just
Mhm.
those get a 0.5% multiplier value. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like the thing with Smash Mouth is Smash Mouth has the same thing, but running backs and defenses. Um, Running backs tend to like he can obviously have a down week like this week. With receivers though, I feel like it's just more hit or miss. You have your elite receivers, but I mean, take Tyreek, right? Like two catches,
Yeah.
13 yards, and a touchdown. Like there's a lot more top tier receivers, and you can miss on those.
Well, the other thing, Haibo, is this is, if I'm doing my math right, this is a five-player multiplier, and that's only a four position multiplier. So, again, it gets harder.
It
There's
gets
a step
harder.
up. This is a tougher, yeah, and quarterbacks in general should score more points than others. I
Yep,
do think receivers score less since there's no PPR in this unless you add a card, but still, this is who,
it's a
who,
tough one.
who's controlling it? Come on.
So the big reveal, controlling West Coast, we have Scott Fish.
Nice.
If you've played fantasy for a while, you know who Scott Fish is. He runs Scott Fish Bowl, Fantasy Cares, the largest fantasy football charity. He raises tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars each year through Scott Fish Bowl and Fantasy Cares. He has been named the Matthew Berry Game Changer Award. He was Person of the Year for The Athletic back in 2018. FSGA, which is the Fantasy Sports and Gaming Association, he was Humanitarian of the Year. Definitely a stalwart in the industry.
Awesome.
Um, we will also be announcing very soon that we're going to be doing something with Scott Fishbowl and Fantasy Cares later this month. So
That's great.
keep an ear out for that. But yeah, super excited to have Scott on board. He's going to be taking over West Coast, and good luck to those who
What
who
was it like 10 people? How many people made it there?
14
14. So
14.
14 against him. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
14
great.
against him, 18 against Smash Mouth, and 600 against Deadeye. We'll see how how Deadeye fares this week against about 600 people. So
Jeez. Okay. Okay. Oh,
all
that's great.
right. So let's as we kind of wind down, I want to talk a little bit just about our kind of winner last week. Top overall score, barely edging out second place by point 0.5. So
And if I
barely
remember, were they not leading after Thursday? They
they
held
were
the whole, right? They went wire to wire, I think.
they went wire to wire.
Yeah.
And we talk about all these strategies week after week, right? We always have these combos and fun strategies. No strategy here. Jamar Chase, Hall of Fame, 111 points.
Well, there's a strategy.
Uh, nothing fancy, nothing
Yeah.
fancy. Hall of Fame plus Jamar Chase, 100 points off of one player. That's the ball game.
Yeah.
That's the ball
Jeez.
game.
That is
Um,
insane.
60 some on Lamar. His other card was
Relevant. Yeah.
Mr. Relevant on. At this point, I think Lamar just hits with Mr. Relevant every week.
That's right. Yep.
It's more or less that's probably as much a sure thing as you're gonna get. But yeah,
That's
no combos, nothing fancy. Just
those are the vanilla cards, right? Or maybe Mr. Relevant's not vanilla, but like that's pretty good still.
yeah. 48 again, 48 of the top 50 had Jamar Chase. And that gets us back into, we talk about a lot of these other cards, but I don't think we've ever talked about basically the vanilla cards.
Yeah.
There's 18 of them, a starting All Pro and Hall of Fame set for every single position. Your quarterback, running back, and wide receivers have a 1.5, 2, and 2.5 progression. Tight end, kickers, and defenses, because generally they score a little bit less, have a 2, 2.5, and 3. Super simple. That doesn't mean they're underpowered, though. You can win just playing these cards.
Yeah.
And for any newbies, any folks who are new to the game, and it can be intimidating at first, right? If you've never played before and you're coming in and there's like 60 cards to learn, it can be intimidating. Great place to start. Just use the vanilla cards your first week. Like I said, they're not underpowered. Like you can win. We
Yeah.
just saw it, right? Hall of Fame on Jamar Chase more or less won the week. You can win with just the vanilla cards. It's a great place to start and kind of get your feet wet as you kind of learn the other cards and learn some of the other things you can do.
Yeah. It's great.
Um, I also want to briefly just talk about card scoring. We get questions around this every now and then, but the way a card scores is, I like to think of it as like the the card is basically, imagine you have the player plus the card. How many additional points did they score beyond if you just played the player themselves? So let's say Jalen Hurts scores 20 fantasy points. Okay. So if you didn't play any cards, Hurts would have had 20. If you played all pro quarterback, which is a 2x multiplier on Jalen, he would have had 40. So then the question now, right, is like high school algebra, right? Like Jalen plus all pro gives you 40. Jalen by himself gives you 20. So how much is all pro worth? All pro is worth 20 points. It's
Yeah.
the score with the card minus the score without the card. And that's true across all of our cards. So if you ever have any questions about why a card is scored a certain way, you can always reach out to us. But this is kind of the formula, right? Your score with the card minus your score without the card. And that's how you calculate the card points. So
Yeah. Makes sense. That's helpful to see, though, kind of out there. I like that. Yeah, I
mhm.
try to do that math in my head when I'm looking at like, okay, how much is that all pro worth that I got to get a guy to score 30 regular points to equal 2,500 from Run CMC, even
Right.
though that 2,500, I'm just flushing it down the toilet every week.
Yep. But yeah, I think that's more or less it. Very exciting week, as we start getting into kind of the meat of the second half of the season and you start seeing teams start, jockeying for position or fighting for draft position, if you will,
That's
for some
right.
other teams. We'll kind of see what's going on out there. But yeah, any any thoughts on week 11?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited. I hope Washington gets it back together. I don't, the Steelers. That's like the seventh time in a row they've won against. That's just is what it is what it is. But no, what about you? Anything you're excited to see?
I'm excited for the Thursday night game. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, that'll be fun. I'm glad we're not doing this then.
yeah, I
It
know.
would have felt better coming off of a win, but going to Philadelphia is not going to be fun. It's like, why couldn't it be the Cowboys? Come on.
I mean, you will get the Cowboys twice. It's
That's right. That's right. Don't worry, they'll have solved all their issues when Washington plays them.
and unfortunate for all the Saquon folks last week, but Philadelphia got to rest a quarter there. So,
Yeah.
but
That's
it'll be a good game. It'll be a really solid Thursday night game. So we'll
I'll
see what
tell you, I'm a lot
happens.
more excited about that, Haibo, than the Monday night game of the Texans and Cowboys. So I mean, I think we hopefully we've got the extremes here. We've got maybe a potentially really dog of a game Monday, and hopefully we do get something great on Thursday.
At least it's a night game.
That's
At
right.
least it's
Yeah.
a night game. So no sun for that one.
No sun issues.
And with that, I think, yeah, it's good seeing you. We
Yeah,
will come back and dissect week 11 next week. Good luck to everybody out there listening. Go and set your lineups. And yeah, best of luck in week 11.
awesome. See you, everyone.
All right.
Good
Have a
luck.
good one.
Bye.